We're here at Buena Eco Lodge in Bali, and it's amazing out here. We're surrounded by food forests. Just on the drive over here, we were driving through just constant bananas, coconuts, cacao, coffee, and so many other fruits. We learned about snake fruit, which is a really cool palm that makes these like dragon scale like fruits at the base of them. And yeah, it's a really sweet fruit. They're really awesome. And yeah, it's amazing out here. Behind us is that's a beautiful garden, permaculture garden. There's edible plants landscaped all around the property. Real like food forests back there to explore, natural swimming pools, and it's amazing. Yeah, the natural swimming pools, they have fish in them. They have plants and like a little waterfall that feeds into it, and it's just a real amazing vision for what's possible. This is a swimming pool that doesn't have chlorine, so you don't have to worry about these toxins being absorbed through your skin when you're in the water, and there's all this amazing life to see while you're swimming. Like had the frogs on the side of it last night were calling, and it's just, yeah, so cool. It's so amazing out here, and we wanted to shoot a video just to talk about how we're inspired by this place and what's possible for our planet in terms of landscaping with edible and medicinal plants, and implementing permaculture strategies to make a more ecologically integrated society.
Yeah, this place is absolutely beautiful. It's got great design, and its walkways and its pertinent locations. So as you go from one location on the property to another for whatever use case it is, like the sauna or your living quarters or a chill spot like we're in now, in between is all of these little gardens, just spread out throughout and interspersed throughout all of the sections of the property. And it's just great to see because each of the sections is small, so there's easy access to all the plants for maintenance and harvest, and all the paths are very well taken care of. So it's just a really great environment to be in overall, a great living space to feel like you are actually ecologically integrated, that you're living in relationship with all of the species that you're cultivating in your own home. And so, yeah, super inspirational. Would love to create something similar to this in the future to test out, how feasible is this? What are the barriers to entry for the average person to integrating this kind of permaculture lifestyle into their lifestyle? Because I think it would be incredibly beneficial to see more of the world gardening like this and having a relationship with nature like this, because it would be, I think, great for everyone's physical and mental health, and just and even the spiritual growth that comes from living in communion with nature on a deep level. And so, yeah, I think we have aspirations to model off of this creation here and do something similar ourselves, and then in doing that we'll find out what are the barriers to entry, how easy is it for somebody to do this in a casual way without it having to give up their full-time job or whatever is occupying most of their time. Can somebody do this in a more casual manner? It can just be part of the lifestyle rather than having to be something that is all consuming of your energy. Can we just passively live an ecologically integrated society? So very interested to see how we can determine that and see if we can spread that message, spread the what we learn as we continue to create based off of these inspirations that we're having from this place here. So yeah, just very impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, like these guys said, we're super inspired by this place, and why we really jumped on this call to talk about our vision is that this is what we've been talking about for years, is creating places like this, not only to have a land that's healed, that's creating permaculture land, fruits for ourselves and the community around us, but how we can use this knowledge and teach other people how to integrate this into society. As they're talking about, this land is using permaculture design, using natural designs. Everything that do is with intentionality. And especially as we travel throughout Bali, we're seeing temples throughout our experience. And so we really want to bring all these ideas and these concepts that we're learning from out here and the other places that we visit like this, and bring it to the Western world, bring it into these more integrated cities that we want to help create. You know, nature being part of our experience is very beneficial on so many levels. And so really what I think we want to talk about a lot today is the design aspect, what we wanted to create, and how that creation will help us learn to create integrated cities with nature, and how we can take, you know, individual aspects of this property, of properties that we're going to create, to really change the world to a healthier form, to one that is more integrated with nature, and one that is the new earth, that is the Garden of Eden that it should really be. So I think for starters, I think a huge one that we are super passionate about, and this one does so well, is the permaculture design and the gardens around. Eric, you want to touch upon that?
Yeah, for sure. So what's really amazing about this property, and really with just a lot of what we've seen here in Bali, is this kind of food forest style of landscaping. So this is really different from how we conventionally grow plants and for food in the United States, where there's so much emphasis on monoculture agriculture, which is just the same species. For example, a field of corn is just pure corn, and then they use herbicide to keep every other species out of it. So this is a whole different type of philosophy, to where it's like, rather than seeing a plot of land as being, this is just where the coconuts are going to grow, for example, that's an example, to see that it's actually recognize it as an ecosystem, see that you can have multiple different species of plants next to each other. And it's so wonderful to see that here, because without realizing that all these plants around us are edible, it's you would think that these are just growing up naturally. It's like a forest that just grew up naturally, and it's so cool. It's so cool to see that kind of food forest design, to where it's really impossible to distinguish from an actual ecosystem. And of course, the benefit of that is that you're not trying to control so much. So there's so much control used in monoculture, of trying to make sure that there's no invasive weeds, no pests, all this pesticide and herbicide being applied to our food. That's a really crazy thing to do, to put poisons all over the food that we eat. And then just that kind of just level of resisting nature, resisting the interconnectedness of ecosystems, is this really working against nature. Obviously, it maximizes food yields, which is important. But if we had a more passive relationship with landscaping, with edible plants, it would really change food security around the world, if we just would just grow in among where we live these nut-bearing trees, for example, these fruits, all these vegetables as greens in the understory beneath fruit-bearing and nut-bearing shrubs and trees. It's you can have these layered levels to it, to where you have so many different species all growing in the same area, and you don't need to use herbicides and pesticides. As long as you have a lot of food planted, yes, there's going to be various animals coming through and eating parts of the crops, but then what's going to happen is that the strongest plants are going to survive that, and then there's going to be enough for just both the wildlife to eat, which is important, the wildlife need food too, and then also enough for us to eat. And also on the topic of monoculture agriculture is that all these it's really just resisting all of nature. It's resisting all of the natural processes of you have certain insects come in and suck on the plants, for example, and then but if you spray insecticide, then you're also killing what eats those bugs that are on the plants. So it's you have bugs that are eating the plants, but then you have bugs that eat those bugs eating the plants. So if you spray insecticide, you're just killing that whole balance right there. Whereas if you do this type of landscaping with edible medicinal plants, and you're not spraying insecticide, you're not spraying herbicide, then you allow it to naturally all be in relationship to itself, and nature naturally finds this balance. So I think that that's what we're most inspired by being here, is seeing how balanced this landscape is, how much biodiversity is around us. There's so many different species of birds. We're hearing all these different crickets and insects just singing in the landscape. It's really beautiful, really peaceful to be out here, and there is so much food being produced on this land. So it just goes to prove that you don't need to try to control so heavily. You don't need to spray all these poisons to have still a very abundant yield of food and medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's really inspiring as well is the permaculture design is just how well the whole structure of this place is built. For example, like the places we're staying are super integrated with the weather. You're not having AC. All the stuff that you're using, natural soaps, natural toilet paper, and also just the way that they're structured around the whole thing with the nature places, the natural pools, the saunas. This is a very great example of a healing center, as much as this isn't even a retreat center per se, but a place for anyone to go and see and heal themselves in nature, which I think is a huge important role that we want to play into when we create these type of spaces for the world. It's not only to educate people on the ecological side and what we can do to integrate this into society, but create these centers of healing not only for humans that come through retreat spaces, retreat centers, and the nature around it, but also for the land itself through these permaculture designs. Now, to touch upon that even more, Connor, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really all comes together as one conscious way of living. Whenever you see that, for example, like whenever you poison, your crops to try to prevent weeds and insects from sharing with you, then you poison yourself. And so just in that same way, whenever you design your living spaces and working spaces to be devoid of life, and to be not ergonomic and all these things, and it creates physical and mental dysfunction. So really you can kind of see that you can handle it all at once, and it's really just a new conscious way of living that is this new earth, and that you design your living space to be integrated with nature. You treat the earth harmoniously. You instead of seeing other animals like weeds, insects, or animals passing through as your enemies taking your food, you see it as you have abundance to share with the whole world. And all these things will reflect in your mental and physical health whenever you have the activity of going outside and interacting with your food, not spraying poison on it. You naturally, you want to get more movement, you want to be healthier, you want to be out in the sun, you breathe good air. Naturally you see, okay, I don't want to poison my food, I don't want to poison my clothes, I don't want to poison anything anymore. I want to just live harmoniously with the earth, with my body, in society. And then all of our communities will be healthier when we have these closer communities that are brought together through shared activities like sharing our food, harvesting our food, exercising together, all these things that will just naturally fall into place as you adopt this conscious way of living that permaculture so clearly represents, a natural design. And so, yeah, I think, it's something we all represent. We all, we come together with our unique interests and skills, but then see a unified vision of how the new Earth looks. And, I think this place does a great job at demonstrating this ecological design side of it. And yeah, I think, we're going to be perpetuating this and growing this and seeing how can this apply? How can we make this streamlined, and break down these barriers, these perceived barriers to entry to what is really just the most natural, harmonious thing for a human being to do, and in terms of the way we structure our living spaces in our societies.
Yeah, well said. So I guess what we'll do now is we'll just share exactly our vision of what we want to do. This is a very inspiring place, and we've seen plenty like this, especially as we're traveling to different countries who are doing this stuff. But really, I want us to explain where the steps we're trying to take and why we think this is important to show this world of how we can do this into the integrated society. So for years now, we've been talking about, getting land and creating these permaculture retreat center spaces as a place to heal the humans as well as the land. This is going to be multiple places down the road, but let's talk more in depth about what one center would look like. What does a place look like where people can come and get educated, get healed, and see how they can bring that into wherever their community is? So we're creating these communal spaces, retreat center spaces, permaculture spaces. Who wants to jump on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, this is a great example of that. And, the vision of especially just have us being a relationship to a piece of land to really bring that permaculture to life. We are from South Louisiana, so there's definitely, think about how we can bring more of that to South Louisiana. It's like Louisiana is very far south in the United States, so there's a very short winter, and that means that we have a big growing season. There's so many different species of edible medicinal plants that we can grow in Louisiana, and our friend Brock Barker, he's doing a fantastic job just like in our hometown area of demonstrating permaculture and really living it. And yeah, we want to bring more of that, especially not just edible medicinal plants for people, which is a big side of what we're passionate about, but also really restoring the ecosystem, restoring the habitat for the wildlife. So for the center that we'll be creating, we're definitely going to be focusing on not only just demonstration of food forests and how to have all that space for edible medicinal plants for people, and just how all these different spaces, such as like the example here, natural swimming pool, just all the different ways that we can harmoniously live with the land. But then we're also creating the space for the other species. In the example of South Louisiana, we have coastal prairie, we have bottomland hardwood forests. These ecosystems are not being treated very well at all, and we would be including all of these plants and have spaces for the native animals of our area to also be cohabitating with the people on the land. So that's a big part of what I'm thinking about, is like, how could this be applied in South Louisiana? Louisiana is such an amazing climate for growing all kinds of edible medicinal species, and it's just largely untapped into. I mean, most of the agriculture in Louisiana is all rice, sugar cane, soy, and it's not leveraging the land for all of the abundance it can really provide. So we want to show that off.
Yeah, and if, I guess, are you asking also more about like some specifics about like what things we want to see, features we want to see built on the land, or?
Yeah.
So I mean, as far as that goes, like, great natural pool, like you mentioned, super cool thing. I think a lot more people would probably benefit with natural pools instead of the poison pools that we have now, um, and many ways. But something like that, having these interspersed chill spots like what we're in now, nice big trees, multiple lodges, like living quarters, like the house we're staying in right there. Um, Communal areas, of course, where you come and cook and share meals. Um, and then recreational spaces like, an open lawn here or there to do some sort of sports or exercise, stuff like that. Um, Obviously, being permaculture, you wouldn't want to have just the whole thing turned into a lawn. That would be, the classic American objective would be with their land, but we would like to do the opposite of that. So we'd be very conscious about where do you put an open grass field to use specifically for a purpose, and then besides that, you have natural habitat because you're ecologically integrated in your landscape design. And so you have species that produce food, obviously, species that might just be pollinating and providing other ecosystem services. You'd have some communal indoor location as well for whenever you have gatherings indoors on a larger scale. So some sort of like concert hall type situation, yoga studio type situation, probably some type of shed, for working, for creating, for crafting. Um, yeah, I mean, it's kind of what's coming to mind right now. But yeah, I'd love to see it all in this very intelligent design like we see here, where, okay, you just have a natural reason to walk across the entire property, just get you moving through the property, get you interacting with all the different species casually as you go about your day. So that way, permaculture creation lifestyle doesn't have to be something that you go out of your way for. It just becomes naturally integrated with your daily life. And then there's also the permaculture principle, foundational principle of you're working with nature, not against nature. So that comes first in everything you do in your design. So the design will be first based off of having an understanding of what's the hydrology of the landscape that you're in, of the property that you're on. What is the natural ecosystem services your property is already providing? What are the species composition? Having clear understandings of those sort of microhabitats and geologic aspects of what your land is providing, to go into a very comprehensive understanding and integrated design plan for whenever you make your whenever you build your buildings, right? Because you don't want to, if you know part of your property's in a flood zone, for example, you don't want to have your biggest building right there or something like that, right? So just like things like that, just taking that stuff into account, understanding soil types and all these kinds of things for whenever you're planning where your gardens are going to go, what kind of gardens, what trees you want to plant where next to each other. All these things would be taken into account, just according with permaculture principles. We work with nature, not against nature, because we are nature. We're not separate. And just that principle is going to guide you all the way through all these different facets of life, to be united in this lifestyle design.
I got two more points. So one that this place does very well is open air house design, and yeah, that's a really important point because, as we said, we recognize that you don't want to create that boundary. We want to have the air be flowing, and that's so much of what causes disease in our culture today is just the toxic indoor air. That air is stale, especially with the way it gets mixed in with dust and microplastics. It's like to be able to have like those windows easily openable and just an intelligent design to allow air, not clean, natural air to flow through is super big. So yeah, they do that very well here. And also, whenever I was out at night last night, no light pollution, and that's huge. So many properties always have these big street lights or these big lights that are just on with like very aggressive blue lights that increase the cortisol and adrenaline and make it difficult to sleep and just mess up for wildlife. It's just yeah, really important to have a dark so that you can see the stars and so that it doesn't disrupt the wildlife. Like the fireflies are out here. We saw a big firefly yesterday, and yeah, that's yeah, those two. One
Good points.
Yeah. Well, we've talked a lot about permaculture, but really it's also just about conscious creation. Permaculture is just a huge part of that, of how you can really heal. And so, like with the buildings, with like the lights, how conscious are we when we're actually putting and creating something onto this world? And so, upon that, when we're creating stuff for healing ourselves, not just the permaculture and the nature, but when we're creating these yoga studios, when we're creating these centers of healing, whether it be any type of healing modality, we also really want to take the ideas that temples really take upon, which is just having that amount of consciousness poured into our buildings and our, not just physical buildings, but the pathways, the designs, using all these sacred geometries and these understandings that the ancients all knew about, and really bringing this forward, especially in the modern world, in the Western world. The buildings are not super consciously made. We're seeing a bunch of square skyscrapers filled with AC and blue lights. And so really integrating that aspect as well with the permaculture, with these natural ways, is a huge opportunity for anyone who wants to come heal themselves and learn how to integrate this into their community, to see it from a holistic approach. And so that's another key thing that we're really passionate about when it comes to creating these type of centers and also integrating this back into society.
Yeah, definitely. Sacred geometry, biogeometry, really big.
Yeah, using these new but old ancient technologies to really create the wellness center that society has the ability to create.
Yeah, it's like what your home and your living space and everything you create has a purpose, but it's also art, and those things don't need to be mutually exclusive. You can create things with a purpose and make it beautiful. And I think that's really what we naturally are inclined to do as humans. It's what inspires us. So that's what we can do whenever we're conscious and we're creating.
Yeah. So one other thing is that I think this place does a really well job is not only is the permaculture and the integrated side of gardening and creating these fruit forests, but keeping the natural landscape. Like there's a waterfall on this property and there's walkways to get there, and really just highlighting the beauty of the natural land. For example, we're from South Louisiana. We're very passionate about healing that land. And so really integrating and showing like where this land really can thrive and what is the actual natural ecosystem is another huge part to this type of land that we will be creating and wanting to show off to the world. So like using the native plants is a huge one, creating spaces for nature to go wild and experience its own creation is a huge part of this thing, not only us cultivating the land as well. You want to touch upon that with the native plants? I think that's a huge one that is often overlooked.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when land is developed in the United States, it's often just completely plowed over. It just absolutely breaks my heart to see old trees, some trees that are old growth, like ancient trees, and then whenever that land is being developed, just all of it's clear cut, not with any respect. So yeah, that's a big part of like our vision is obviously we want to have land that's in a relationship to already existing ecosystem. So we don't want it to just for example buy land that's just in the middle surrounded by agriculture to where there's not going to be any corridors for wildlife to come into our land. So we want to get land that's but land that's not also just like pristine forest. Like you want land that has, for example, maybe a stream that has older trees around it, and that's a corridor, so that it's connected to other ecosystems. But then you buy land that's not just land that's pristine, but you wanted to buy land to regenerate. So we'll look for land that has been has portions of it that have been farmed or plowed or abused in some way, so that we can effectively regenerate that portion. But then if it's adjacent to uh, healthy ecosystem, then that's going to be the most harmonious way to bring ecology into the land that we're healing.
Mm,
So that's the perspective I see with that.
yeah.
Preserve that part like fully that's intact,
Mm,
and then heal what's been already damaged.
right. Yeah, I think the huge things about our vision with these type of lands is that not only is it a place for healing for the land, for ourselves, it's a place for education so that people can learn, for us to learn how we can actually push this into the integrated society. But it also is just the example of how communities can really be created. This is not something that we thought of and we're the only ones doing it. This is something that's already been happening, and so we are seeing it like in this places that we can create these, smaller communities that really can feed the greater communities. I mean, this property itself is giving a lot of its fruits down south of this property in Bali, and so really touching upon the economic side of why this is a very great investment and why living like this is actually the move that people are trying to shift to consciously or unconsciously.
Hmm.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can look at that. When it comes to the economics of poisoning our food, right? We think that it saves us money and that it's more efficient to spray herbicide and pesticide all over, and to have these monocrop agriculture systems. And it might seem like that from a very myopic perspective, that, oh, okay, well, the yield in terms of pounds of corn this year is so much greater in this monocrop glyphosate field than with this organic corn that you grew over here. And so, sure, maybe so, you get more pounds of corn, but what is the externalities of that? What is the external costs that you are calculating whenever you're looking at that? Well, you've got the cost of destroying the ecosystem where you have the monocrop farm itself. You have the cost of all the poisons going into the rest of the ecosystem, through water runoff and the hydrology. You have the cost of the poisons entering all the humans and causing us to have, terrible health, which, right, you can't really put a price on that at the end of the day. That's priceless. But, even you can look at the healthcare costs and see a price that's extremely high. And then you can see, well, the actual weight of the crops doesn't correlate to the amount of nutrition and vitality that you get from the crops. So you could have 9 pounds of corn that is from a glyphosate field that actually you could just eat 1 pound of corn from an organic permaculture garden and then get an equivalent nutrient profile. You wouldn't get an equivalent macronutrient profile, but the micronutrient profile, so the vitamins and minerals, and other antioxidants and valuable aspects of the plants that you'd be consuming. So that's one way to look at it, right? You can look at it through that perspective, and then you can look at it through the other perspectives of, okay, well, how does this affect my lifestyle? If I'm producing food for myself, how can I passively do that in a way that reduces my food costs? And so this is definitely a variable that changes a lot depending on your living situation, the country you're in, the economic situation. Being in the world that we're in now, food inflation is pretty crazy, but also natural resource inflation is pretty crazy in line with that. So if you really want to look at efficiency and compare efficiency, it's important that you do permaculture farming in a way that isn't something that takes your entire wallet and lifestyle and time investment to do so, because your time is also worth money. So efficiency and being pragmatic and working with nature instead of against nature is obviously going to be what's conducive to that. And so that'll be different for every scenario. But that's part of the discovery that's left to be done. That that we're going to be doing. Other pioneers of permaculture are going to be doing is really seeing like, okay, whenever I try to put boots on the ground and make this permaculture Garden of Eden in my home, what does that really look like? What's the most feasible thing for me to create? Most feasible plants for me to grow to really feed myself and my community without having to put in tons of hours of labor or whatnot. So just stuff to take into consideration there. But absolutely, the economics cannot be avoided. So always important to be thinking about as we progress.
Yeah. So another huge part about our vision is this whole retreat side of it. We've seen a lot of permaculture designs, permaculture properties, but we've also seen a lot of retreat center properties as well. And one of the main things that we don't often see is the integration of both of them. So that's one huge thing that I think is really important. I mean, if you're going to a retreat center for healing, the whole thing should be healing. Permaculture is a very healing property. The food that you get from it when you eat it, the whole land aspect is part of that healing process. But I want to touch a little bit more upon the retreat center sides to these type of properties because, as much as we're trying to heal the land and with the permaculture designs, it's also trying to heal ourselves. And so using modalities like yoga, qigong, all of these new healing modalities, sound healing, etc., breath work. And so what we really want to do in these type of centers is have it where people can fly in or come in, see the beauty of the land, but also we'll be running retreats where we're educating people, getting them to heal through retreats as one of the foundations of it. I think this is a really good point for the economic side. This can help it fund the system way better because not only is it self-funding the property, but then it's starting to fund the world around it. This is also integrating to the world around it because once you see how you can create sustainability economically in the body through healing and through permaculture, and you can bring that into the integrated society through your vibration, how much faster are we going to spread this into the world? So all of us are practicing in all of these ancient technologies such as yoga. And so what about these meditation retreats and these educational retreats that are going to be so important to y'all in these retreat centers that we're creating around the world?
Yeah, I'll say, just off the bat there that you're right, that this does play into the economics in another way that maybe people can't immediately see. But if you're healing yourself, mentally and physically, then that is going to play out massively in terms of what you create, what your effect on society is. And so if we're all investing first and foremost in our consciousness and our state of being and transforming our mind with the miracle, seeing not separation and fear, but unity and love, and just and prioritizing that work above all other work, then so many of the problems that we see in the world today being created would cease to be created, and then so many problems that exist could be solved so much more easily just by addressing the root of everything, which is our consciousness, our state of being. Do we see fear? Do we see separation, or do we see love and unity? And so that's exactly what these retreats are going to be accomplishing. So yeah, totally see the value of that there, and taking that forward into what we're creating is going to be the most effective thing, I think we can do.
Yeah, absolutely agree. The way I see the ecological crisis that we're in right now is that it is a reflection of the crisis of the mental health within. So with the constant state of fight or flight, the constant overload of toxins, the overstimulation, it's no wonder that everyone's too overwhelmed and too preoccupied to make meaningful change in the environment. So that's step number one, is really reconnecting to stillness within yourself, regrounding into your center, and from there you can recognize the oneness with nature And that's the main thing is that when you're living by fear, when you're believing in this separation from nature, then that's the state of being that creates the insanity that's completely overrunning our culture, to where we're afraid of nature, we're destroying nature, we're just resisting going outside, always spending just time in indoors or in our cars, and like just never actually getting our bare feet on the ground and really reconnecting. So this path of healing spiritually coincides with healing the land. They're mirror images of each other. If you heal yourself, you'll be inclined to heal your land, because the land is yourself. You recognize this with any sort of intensive meditation practice. The oneness between yourself and nature cannot be denied. So it's these works are really the same work, healing the environment and healing yourself. With one, the other comes naturally.
Yeah. Anything else y'all want to touch upon before we close out our vision for this time around?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like a large portion of the businesses in the world create problems. They just create problems, and then a large portion of the businesses in the world exist to solve those problems created by other businesses, right? So that's kind of like just kind of what I was saying, or what I was pointing to, of like things that are just unnecessary that can all be kind of washed over whenever you come together as a community and live consciously and focus on the inner work, and instead of trying to eliminate the evil outside of yourself, eliminating what the darkness within, and having that be your priority in everything that you do and all the work that you do. And so I think, well, do you want to talk about specifically like what kind of retreats we want to create? That's something we wanted to talk about?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. So I mean, the vision for this land is, well, we create a perfect retreat center to host retreats where we take people on nature walks, to bring them into firsthand experience with nature, so that they can have that experience of learning and interacting, experiencing in a safe environment with people who know what they're doing, who have an established relationship with nature. Then also giving meditation guidance, qigong guidance, yoga instruction, movement, and all of these holistic health modalities. Bringing that guidance to the table, education and experiences with that. Meditation, the inner work, the emotional processing, the emotional guidance, the philosophy, the metaphysics, the teaching of the education around the nature of the self, the nature of reality. Helping people find their purpose, understand themselves, get clear direction on where they're going and how they can get there, develop strategies for creation, for self-discovery. And coming together and doing this with all of our unique skills and interests, we create something greater than the sum of its parts. And we bring together our passion and our knowledge about ecology, about farming and permaculture, about holistic health, yoga, qigong, metaphysics, philosophy, and then business and money and societal structuring and economics. And we have all these things together, and whenever you have this holistic integrated view and meshing of these multifaceted dimensions of our life and experience, then you can really just have a clear vision for how these things are meant to live together, and how we can all self-actualize together. So we're going to be hosting all different kinds of retreats with different themes, and different experiences and highlights all around these things. So really looking forward to co-creating that with you guys, as we co-create and heal the land and heal people. So very excited to do that and share that with the world, and be leading the world in this transformation and creation of the new earth.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything?
Yeah. Another detail about our land, this center where we do the retreats and do the permaculture, is I am excited for in this this part that is gonna have like more open area, to where there'll be like a stage that we'll have the yoga teacher be up on stage and then leading class or whatever kind of workshop or presentation. This stage will also have some of the best speakers in the world, crispest, clearest sound quality, and this will be where we also do sound healing and have amazing musicians play some of the best music in the world on that stage. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, you gotta celebrate life.
Yeah, with art.
Yeah.
It's gotta include art.
Yeah, so there's all that to say, this retreat center, this land will also be a space that we hold little festivals, and so this land has so many different applications, from healing the ecosystem to being, the space where we have our home base and live, to also being where we host these retreats, and also being where we host little mini festivals. So many applications of this land.
Yeah, I think with that too, is we really want to emphasize that this is a community space. We're going to allow so many people to come in for these retreats, for these festivals, for our own internal community, but this is a greater community thanks to the internet, that we're able to have this vision not only be actualized in a physical sense, but let y'all join in on this journey and see where y'all can grab inspiration and ideas and concepts and education from us, not just from coming physically, but just watching us in the process of creating these things and running these things, because we really want this for the whole world. We want people to have community. This is one of the things that is so desperately missing in a world that's so connected through the internet. And so with the beauty of both the internet having that disconnection, but also that connection, us having, this technology of the internet will really let us show you the walk that we're walking with this land, and showing you the step-by-steps and what it really takes to create these type of communities and how it affects the communities all around the world. Cool. Yeah, that's a little bit of our vision, a lot more to come. Till next time.
Thank you. Peace.
Peace.